Imagine turning on a Linux system for the very first time and opening the file manager. Instead of familiar drive letters like C or D, you're greeted by a single root folder and a mysterious collection of directories with short names like bin, etc., usr, and v. At first glance, it feels confusing, almost cryptic. But what you're looking at is one of the most powerful and elegant design choices in modern operating systems. The Linux file system structure isn't random, and it isn't outdated. It's the result of decades of refinement shaped by servers, supercomputers, developers, and everyday users, all working toward one goal: clarity, stability, and control. To truly understand Linux, you need to understand how its file system is organized and why it works the way it does. Everything in Linux starts from a single point called the root directory, represented by a /. This is the top of the entire system, the beginning of the tree from which every other file and folder grows. Unlike Windows, where each drive has its own route, Linux treats all storage as part of one unified hierarchy. Whether it's your main SSD, a secondary hard drive, a USB stick, or even a network share, everything eventually appears somewhere under this single route. This approach might feel strange at first, but it's incredibly powerful because it means the system sees all data as part of one coherent structure instead of fragmented islands of storage. Directly under the route, you'll find a set of core directories that form the backbone of the operating system. One of the first you'll encounter has been, this directory contains essential user commands, the basic programs that are required for the system to function, especially during early boot or in rescue situations. Commands like lsc, p, mv, cat, bash, and echolive here. These are the tools that allow you to navigate, inspect, and manipulate the system. And they're placed in bin, so they're always available, even if other parts of the system aren't mounted yet. Closely related to bin is spin. While bin is meant for all users, spin is primarily for system administration commands. These are tools used to manage the system itself, such as configuring networking, managing disks, or controlling system services. Commands like FACK, IP, reboot, and shutdown are typically found here. The separation between bin and spin reflects an old but still meaningful distinction between everyday user tasks and system-level maintenance, even though modern systems often blur that line. Another critical directory is at etc., which holds system-wide configuration files. If bin and spin are the tools, then etc. is the instruction manual that tells those tools how to behave. Configuration files for networking, users, services, desktop environments, and installed applications all live here. Files like password, which defines user accounts, ifstab, which controls how storage devices are mounted, and hosts, which maps host names to IP addresses, are all found in etc. One of the most important things to understand about Linux is that configuration is usually done by editing plain text files, and etc. is where most of that configuration lives. Then there's usr, which is often misunderstood by new users. Despite its name, usr doesn't mean user home directory. Historically, it stood for Unix system resources, and that meaning still fits today. The usr directory contains the majority of user-facing programs and libraries that aren't strictly required for early boot. Inside usr, you'll find subdirectories like usr bin, usr spin, usr lib, and usr share. Most of the software you install through your package manager ends up here. This separation allows the core system to remain small and stable while additional software lives in usr, making upgrades and maintenance easier. The lib directory, and its modern variants like lib64, contain shared libraries needed by programs in bin and spin. These libraries are collections of reusable code that programs depend on to function. Instead of each program carrying its own copy of common code, Linux uses shared libraries to save space and ensure consistency. If a critical library in lib is missing or broken, the system may not even be able to boot, which is why this directory is considered part of the core operating system. Another directory that often raises questions is boot. This directory contains everything needed to start the system, including the Linux kernel itself, initial RAM disks, and bootloader configuration files. When your computer powers on and hands control to the bootloader, boot is where it looks to find the kernel and instructions for launching the operating system. Because of its importance, boot is usually kept small and isolated, sometimes even on its own partition. As you move deeper into the file system, you'll encounter dev, a directory that represents hardware devices as files. This is one of the most uniquely Linux concepts. In Linux, everything is treated as a file, including hardware. Hard drives, USB devices, keyboards, mice, audio devices, and even virtual devices are represented here. For example, your primary hard drive might appear as dev SDA and individual partitions as dev SDA1 or /dev /SDA2. This design allows programs to interact with hardware using the same mechanisms they use to read and write files, creating a consistent and flexible system. The proc directory takes this idea even further. Proc is a virtual file system that doesn't exist on disk at all. Instead, it's generated on the fly by the kernel and provides a window into the running system. Inside proc, you'll find information about running processes, memory usage, CPU details, and kernel parameters. Each running process gets its own directory named after its process ID. By reading and writing certain files in proc, you can inspect and even influence how the system behaves in real time. It's a powerful tool for debugging, monitoring, and tuning performance. Similar to proc is Seize, another virtual file system that exposes kernel and hardware information. Seize focuses more on representing devices and drivers in a structured way. Through Seize, you can inspect hardware attributes, control power management features, and interact with device drivers. Together, proc and Seize provide deep insight into the inner workings of the Linux kernel, all through simple file operations. One of the most familiar directories for everyday users is Home. This is where personal user data lives. Each user gets their own subdirectory under Home, named after their username. Inside, you'll find documents, downloads, pictures, videos, and application settings, hidden files and directories, which start with a .store configuration for desktop environments, editors, browsers, and other user-level software. The home directory is designed to be portable and safe, making it easy to back up user data or move it to another system without touching the rest of the operating system. Temporary files are handled by the TMP directory. This is a space where applications and the system can store short-lived files that don't need to persist across reboots. On many systems, TMP is cleared automatically when the system restarts. It's writable by all users, which makes it convenient, but also means it's treated with special care to prevent abuse. Understanding TMP is important when troubleshooting issues related to disk space or application behavior. Another directory that plays a crucial role is var. The name comes from variable, and that's exactly what it contains. While most of the system is relatively static, var holds data that changes frequently. This includes log files, mail spools, print queues, and application caches. System logs, which are essential for diagnosing problems, are typically found in var log. Because var can grow unpredictably, it's often placed on its own partition in server environments to prevent logs or databases from filling up the root file system. The media and MNT directories are related to mounting external storage. Media is commonly used by modern desktop environments to automatically mount removable devices like USB drives and DVDs. When you plug in a flash drive, it usually appears as a directory under media with a name based on the device or its label. MNT, on the other hand, is a more traditional directory used for temporary or manual mounts, often by system administrators. Both directories reflect Linux's philosophy of integrating all storage into a single file tree rather than assigning separate drive letters. The op directory is used for optional or third-party software that doesn't fit neatly into the standard hierarchy. Some commercial or self-contained applications install here to avoid interfering with the rest of the system. Software in opt often includes everything it needs in its own subdirectory, making it easy to install, remove, or relocate without affecting other programs. Then there's run, a relatively modern edition that holds runtime data for the system since the last boot. This includes process IDs, sockets, and temporary state information needed by running services. Run replaces older directories like var run and is typically stored in memory, ensuring fast access and automatic cleanup on reboot. Lost and found is a directory you might see at the root of a file system, especially after running a disk check. When the system detects orphan files or directories that don't belong anywhere else, it places them here. While you won't interact with lost and found often, it plays an important role in maintaining file system integrity after crashes or power failures. Beyond these directories, what truly defines the Linux file system is not just the names or locations, but the philosophy behind them. Linux follows standards like the File System Hierarchy Standard, which provides guidelines for where files should be placed and why. While not every distribution follows the standard perfectly, the overall structure remains remarkably consistent across systems. This consistency is one of the reasons Linux scales so well, from tiny embedded devices to massive cloud servers. Another key concept is permissions and ownership. Every file and directory in Linux has an owner, a group, and a set of permissions that control who can read, write, or execute it. This model is deeply integrated into the file system structure and is a major reason Linux is considered secure and stable. System files are protected from accidental modification, while user files remain flexible and customizable. Mounting is another foundational idea tied to the file system. When a storage device is mounted, it's attached to a specific directory in the file tree. From that point on, accessing that directory means accessing the device. This design allows incredible flexibility. You can mount a network, drive over a local folder, replace a directory with an entirely different file system, or even mount virtual file systems that exist only in memory. Over time, modern Linux distributions have introduced technologies like containerization and sandboxing, but the core file system structure has remained largely the same. That's a testament to how well it was designed from the beginning. Once you understand where things live and why they're there, Linux becomes far less intimidating and far more logical. Understanding the Linux file system isn't just about memorizing directory names. It's about seeing the system as a living, organized whole. Each directory has a purpose, each file a role, and together they form an ecosystem that's transparent, powerful, and adaptable. Once this structure clicks, tasks like troubleshooting, customization, scripting, and system administration become easier and even enjoyable. What once looked like chaos reveals itself as a carefully crafted design, one that puts control back in the hands of the user and rewards curiosity with clarity. By the time you truly grasp the Linux file system, you stop thinking of it as strange or difficult. Instead, it starts to feel honest. Nothing is hidden behind layers of abstraction you can't access. Everything is there, visible, understandable, and waiting for you to explore it. And that, more than anything else, is what makes Linux different.